Madhouse Podcasting Network.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for checking back in with us for another episode of Behind the Mask. Today we have a special guest, not really, but this is Hunter, aka Looney from the Queen Mary Slider team. Hey, Hunter, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for coming on and willing to talk about your story with us.
My story.
I have to say,
Even though we kind of know it already, we want everybody else to know.
excuse me.
Yeah.
I think you have the most badass name ever.
Why?
Cause Hunter, that's a sick name. What's the
My
origins
brother's is better.
What's the origins of your name? Then you can tell me your brother's.
I believe my mom got my name off of one of the actresses back in the day. I think her name was Hunter as well. And she thought it was super cool, so she gave it to me. But I like my brother's name better.
What is it?
Blaze. And his middle name is N, so it's Blazin.
Yeah, Green Clown.
Yeah, Green Clown.
Blazin. His middle name is N.
Apostrophe N.
Wow.
Blazin Leyvas.
Did he get made fun of in school?
Yeah, everyone thought he was a stoner.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I was like, all right.
Was he?
He went along with it. No.
Well,
He was a band geek.
okay.
Okay, so this episode is full of energy right to begin with. Clearly, we're all like,
It's Cinco de Mayo, and we're doing a freaking podcast.
That's right. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco
Cheers,
de Mayo.
everybody.
Oh, cheers,
Yeah,
everybody. Happy Cinco de
yeah.
Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
And
Drink
then-
up.
I know your sucker BF is there, so what's up, dude? And happy Cinco de Mayo.
AKA the chump.
He's taking a sip over there.
Better.
And now he's being all quiet, even though we know he's just on the other side of the screen.
You don't have to be quiet, bro.
He said you don't have to be quiet. He's shaking his head no.
He can't hear anything either because Hunter's on.
I have both of them.
earbuds in.
Oh yeah, that's
So-
right. He can't. I forgot.
They said Happy Cinco de Mayo, chump.
We
You
know
just
what
go-
he did. Yeah. Well, let's get into this shenanigans here. I know you're still a young buck in the business, but I always say that. It's funny. But let's just get into it and talk about your history, your background, and why you do what you do and all that nonsense. But like we always do with everybody, we want to know what made you decide to come in and decide to be scary girl, not scary guy, but scary girl.
Scary woman.
Yeah, scary woman. What inspired you to be like, oh, I want to do this?
I mean, I grew up around like Halloween. It was super big in my family. My dad used to do it when he was younger. My grandpa on his side used to do it. My mom, she was born in October, so it was just, I sort of grew up around that and, walking around the house, my dad sort of popping out with a mask. Like, that's just sort of how it was. And eventually, I was like, okay, it's just Halloween. Like, I'm going to dress up and, get candy and that kind of stuff. But then I hit like 10 and I was like, I want to do something different. And my brother at the time, he was a senior in high school. And they ended up doing a haunted house for the band program, and they needed people. So it was just a lot of begging my mom, like, let me work. And because my dad was doing it, my brother was doing it, all of his friends that I know, they were all doing it. And
Wait, your mom was reluctant to let you do it? That is shocking. That is completely shocking to me.
well, you got to think I was like 10, 11 at the time.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I'm not too sure. And I finally convinced her to let me do it because my dad and my brother were there. But the weekend that I was supposed to work, my brother actually got super sick because it was a home haunt. The guy, he was really cool, like the design of the maze. Um, he actually built this like giant pool area and with a bridge over it, and they didn't have hot water running outside, so they actually would, the washer and dryer were outside, so they would run the hot water and dump buckets into it every night, trying to keep it hot basically. And my brother was in a wetsuit and he had this weird like fish face on
Oh, so
and
he
like
was in the water.
fingers. Yeah, he
Wow.
actually got hypothermia and got super sick.
Oh
Wow.
snap.
Because it got way too cold for him.
Yeah.
And my brother is taller than me. He's thinner than me. Like in high school, he was only like 85 pounds. So
Jeez.
he got super sick. And so I ended up going and working. And that was sort of really my first taste of doing some kind of haunt, because they actually had me on bungees on a tree.
Wow.
And it was like a step stool. So it was a pretty tall step stool that I would climb up to, hook myself up to the tree. I was in like a straitjacket and just a black mask over my face, because
Okay.
I was supposed to be like there was an executioner in the room.
Gotcha.
And so he would do his whole thing and then he would kick it and then the thing would just drop because it was on hinges, and I would drop and not move. And that's sort of what I did.
Oh, so
But
you
my
were
first-
the hanging victim.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And like my first improv section that I've ever really done with something like that was, I was actually up there and the executioner at the time ended up leaving, and I couldn't call anyone to stop the maze because I was in the straitjacket up on the tree.
Yeah.
And so I ended up pulling it as like, I hurt my kids, I don't deserve to live anymore. Like, and I kicked the thing back and dropped myself. And people thought I was fake until I like was like, dude, stop touching me. And people were like, oh, and I was just sort of like dangling on a tree, like just going in circles. And I was just calling and I was like, someone come help. And so the owner came run over and he's like, what'd you do? And I told him what happened, and he ended up like pushing the stool back up for me to get on top. And he's like, oh, I would have just stood there. And I was like, well, I'm not just going to let people walk through and I'm just standing there,
Like, I want to do something. I don't want to just sit here and do nothing
Yeah.
type of thing.
And then Halloween weekend, I used to go to that Boys and Girls Club over off of Beach and Orange, where the police station is in the
okay.
back of,
Oh yeah.
sort of by Rallies.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The guy who actually, he put up a whole thing. When I was there, I mean, I've always been terrified of clowns. So I was like, oh, I just want to be a clown to get over my fear. But he ended up putting me as a little girl. And I just remember like I was in this long black wig and like an old school grandma style like nightgown. And it was basically like the whole maze was like her nightmare. So you get me first. And they had the door shut, like, because it was inside and outside of like the center. And I just remember like this big old huge guy coming up to the door, and I was just, my face was pressed up against the door and I was just staring at him, and he just looked at me and said, F this, I'm out. And he went running. And like that
Okay,
was sort
I'm
of like
done.
my real, yeah, like that was really like my first thing. And I was like, oh, when I'm 18, I want to do something like, so then it just took off from there. So that was my like beginning experience, I guess.
And what, you were 10 at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. So from the age 10 to 17, did you like, okay, you got that first one under your belt. From 11 to 17, did you do other things to fulfill that I need to scare the shit out of people fix?
Yeah, like I would dress up and try to do different makeups and stuff, like, and go to my grandma's house and hide under the cars and stuff and pop out and grab people's legs, because that's what I can do.
Yeah.
And especially because I was actually working at Knott's from 15 and a half to 18
Mhm.
in the Ghost Town Bakery. So Alexa, cancel. And it was just one of those things where it was super cool to me because, you know, obviously being underage, I couldn't be there past 10.
Right.
But it was super cool to go on my lunch breaks and just sit there, and all these monsters are just rolling in, you know, prosthetics, getting ready. And I was just like,
That's right.
I have
'Cause
an hour.
the bakery's back there across from Ghost Rider exit.
Yeah, right behind Cruise, technically.
Yeah.
You can take a little side area to
That
go
little
back
side-
there.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I would go out there and be like, I would know when you guys started to come out, because I started to get the gist of when you guys, like the first monsters were coming out of makeup.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going on my lunch now. I'm going on my lunch. And I'd go sit outside and I would just sit there and just talk with people like, oh, like how long did it take you to get your makeup ready and that kind of stuff. But I mean, even throughout high school, like I was doing different makeup and stuff. I think my junior year, I ended up doing like a Walking Dead sort of thing because Walking Dead was like big.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, that's the first time that I've ever actually done my half bear face. And I just, yeah. So I literally just take a teddy bear and cut the head off of it.
Oh, shit.
And I cut it in a bunch of sections, and then I pull my hair back like this and then put like the ear section here and then just glue to my face.
Oh shit. Okay, what kind of glue did you use?
I used liquid latex because that's all I had.
Yeah.
So it was liquid latex, and then I actually took makeup sponges and cut them to super pointy like teeth, and then put them all on here, and then just did like a normal glam makeup. And I remember like I walked into every single one of my classes my senior year, and all my teachers said, "No, thank you, get out of my class." So I ended up just going and hanging out in the band room all day, and because I was a band nerd, and so I was just in there all day and was just like, okay, whatever, and just hung out. And then I was super excited, you know, when I turned 18, I was like, oh, I'm already working at NOS. And then a series of unfortunate events happened, and I ended up not being able to work.
I was gonna say, I was gonna touch on that. You beat me to the punch. So I mean, because that's but you ended up at Dark Harbor.
Yeah, so it was actually that year I didn't end up at Dark Harbor. I was a 17th door that year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was too late. Yeah, so because I actually was originally hired to be on bungees in paranormal because I was tiny.
Yeah.
And then just a series of unfortunate events happened, and it was just too late because everyone else's hiring has already been closed. So
yeah,
I just went to 17 door, auditioned, and ended up getting in.
And at that time, was that when they were over in Fullerton?
No, Tustin.
Tustin, okay. That was before they. Oh yeah,
that was the last
yeah, they were
year.
at Tustin Marketplace. Yeah, I was thinking of Sinister Point. My bad. Totally fucking cross out, you know. But yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah, and that was my first like official haunt season that I've ever done. Was that?
So talk about your experience, your first ever official haunt season working for 17th Door, and you know.
I loved it.
About it.
Like, I was Paula, which is the main character of the story. And that year, basically what it was they ended up, she ended up getting pregnant, and she didn't want the pregnancy because her boyfriend was super abusive. So she didn't want the baby, and she was trying to find any possible way to get rid of this child. So most of the time, my main roles were either in the short breaths as a pregnant drunk, or I was giving birth to a pig.
Okay, what year was this?
2017.
Okay, I was gone. I was like 2016. You were the one that was in there when I went through, and you're with this kid that called me by name, which I hate. You know, he broke character and called me by name, and he gives me the little pig, the baby pig.
That was in the birthing room, right?
Yeah.
That was 2017 because that's the first year they had it. That was my year. And
2016 when I went.
2016. I'm sorry, you're right. It was 2016, my first year. And the guy who was actually in the birthing room is Alex. He was on Boardwalk.
Yes, that's him.
Yeah.
He's the one that gives me the pig, and yeah, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they liked me in the birthing room a lot better than they liked me in the short bus, but they knew I like to talk shit. So that's why they had me in the short bus, because I can get away with talking shit because I was drunk.
Right.
And I would throw up on people.
Well, a short bus suits you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, in the birthing room, they liked me in there because I made it believable. Because everyone else who was in there was just like, oh my God, get this baby out of me. Oh my God. And I was screaming bloody murder. You can hear me across the haunt, like, get this fucking baby out of me. Like, I don't want it. Like, I was grabbing people's arms and pulling it for them to actually grab this dead baby pig out of me.
Wow.
So the whole concept is they have to pull it out of you.
Yeah, like she's physically giving birth. Like they had fake legs up, and you would grab it out of this like makeshift thing.
Yeah.
And it was like a real live dead baby pig.
That's what I heard.
I heard a pig like it was like about this big.
Yeah, I heard some of them. I heard
Yeah.
some of the stuff that they did there, and I was like, why?
I enjoyed it because
crazy.
it went to the point to where like, okay, now I'm getting something out of this.
Yeah, but
getting scared.
Having a real fish and having a real pig that really there's no purpose
because in the
for
meat
that.
locker they had the squids and they had the half pig, so it was like two halves of the pig. They had a goat's head with like the actual eyeball in it. Like, I mean, I loved it. They tried to throw me around in other places. A few nights I was actually in the room where she gets abused by her boyfriend at the frat house. And I get so much into character when that happens, and I was so afraid to throw my hands down because that's how I broke my wrist. So I was throwing my hip down, and after 2 nights my hip was solid black, and they were like, okay, we're gonna throw you back in the short bus because you make it funny, you know.
So when your boyfriend would abuse you, like you guys were literally physically fighting, and he was
it was, he would come out and be like, we were asking for phones to try to get away, and they would be like, he'd come out and be like, Paula, what the fuck are you doing? And then he'd come over and like slam his hands like me up against the wall, and then he would throw me like to the floor, and it was concrete with turf on top. And
no padding.
Yeah, no padding, no nothing. And so I was sitting there, and they had like beer cans everywhere, so you're landing on the beer cans and everything like that. I was actually picking him up, throwing it at him.
Wow.
And I was like, if I'm hurting you, let me know. But I'm like just chucking it as hard as I can to get like him away from me.
Yeah.
And like in that room, like alone, there was so many people coming in, like, oh my God, like, dude, leave her alone. Because I was so much tinier than. But that year was definitely the year that a lot of people were triggered. Because you had like her trying to do the abortion, you had the school shooting.
The shower scene.
The shower scene where she's getting raped.
So what? I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole concept behind it being a haunted attraction. Like what was their
like a physical touch?
What was their purpose of like, and that's the thing, it's like I personally am not into the whole like the torture aspect and the physical aspect of the shit, you know, and that's why like I've heard nothing but stories like this when it comes to that haunt 17 door, and it's like I just don't get it. It's just like, you know, McKinney Manor and all these other places.
Oh, they're nowhere near McKinney Manor, dude.
No, but I'm just saying
you sign a release form because they touch you.
But I'm just saying in general
stuff.
It doesn't. But it's like, what's the? I don't get the purpose behind it. And you working there, maybe you you've worked there. Sorry, maybe you know.
Well, I think they were way too in depth with like the story, because I mean her story is still going on now to the day. But I think they just wanted to hit people's trigger points to see when people would break. Because, you know, you had Shar.
Yeah, Shar Meyer. You know.
She was
her, Jeremy Smiley.
Yeah.
She was in like the second room, and you hit the second room and you're getting tased, basically, because you're in wheelchairs.
She's the, oh my God. Yeah.
And so she would,
That woman.
she'd be the teacher or whatever, and she would just hit all the buttons and everyone would get shocked. And I think it's their way of trying to have people push their physical limits to see what they were capable of going through.
Yeah.
Because then you had the school shooting, you had the short bus of her being pregnant while drunk, you had the abuse room, you had her actually in a room trying to coat hanger abortion her kid. You get into another room where it was like TVs telling her she's an awful person. Like it's sort of like a mental thing going in her head.
Yeah.
Then you have the dead animals. Then you have the rape scene in the showers. Obviously they had a phobia room, so it was snakes and spiders. Then you had the church, where you would basically get molested by the preacher. Oh, and they had another room too, where you actually were sitting there and it said Paula's Funhouse on the TV, and it was like a super creepy pastor like taking pictures of you, and it was popping up on the screen. And he would get people to like spank each other and everything like that. Obviously,
That's when
the
people
birthing
really
room.
get into it as guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and then,
well, then let me fast forward a little bit then. Let me ask you at the end of it. Okay, so you have this girl who is pregnant. She gets beat up by her boyfriend and doesn't want the baby. And she tries to, have it. And then, so after the birthing room or after that, like what happens at the end? What is her?
she suffocates the baby.
And then nothing happens, and then you just leave the maze,
Like,
and it's like, oh, okay.
She basically, you go in the room and she's trying to tell you like, oh, make sure your phones are off, and a phone rings and the baby's crying, and she ends up taking the baby to the bed and suffocating the baby and walking over and throwing it in the trash, and that's the end of the maze.
Okay, so not only is it not a cohesive story,
They continued it 2017 season.
Okay. So it's essentially
Yeah.
every year is a continuing.
Every year is a continuation, because 2017 she ended up going to prison for killing her baby. So now she's in prison. She's been in prison for the last 2-3 years or whatever, and she's trying to break out and stuff. So it's like a continuous story of going on.
So
because
okay. So let me ask you. Let's say the following year she's in jail. That's the jail story, or okay, in the beginning or somehow in the queue or whatever. Do they give you the backstory from that point on?
Because once they moved, because they got moved out of Tustin to Fullerton, and when they moved it to Fullerton, you walk up and there's gates.
Okay.
And everyone's in prison jumpsuits, but you don't get that backstory. So if you don't know the backstory, you're not going to know it.
Okay, so
It's very open interpretation.
Yeah, because I think when Matt walked through it the one time, he was like, what the fuck is going on? Because you have no idea if you've never been through it.
Right. And that's what made, and I'm going to use, this is the reason why John Cook was so successful and why his mazes are so successful. He has a very cohesive story, which you can, you know when you're walking through it. Especially if you go several times, you pick up more things.
Yeah.
And it's like these torture, and that's what it is, just torture porn. That's all it is.
Yeah.
There is no entertainment value whatsoever. I'm not trying to belittle your first job.
Oh no, you're
but
good.
It's just like, we can get into a whole tangent on these type of freaking mazes that are just. I went through one. They made us sign a waiver, and we've been through the maze before. It was in Vegas. Trilogy of Terror. Fucking some of the best mazes I've been through, and one of them was called the Gates of Hell, and we had to sign a waiver in the beginning. And I was in love with these guys. I loved their vision, their scare tactics, their stories, their everything about them. I was like, you guys are like top in SoCal for me. So, anyways, we went through this gate or this maze after we signed the waiver because I was talking to the owner, and he was like, "Don't worry, it's just it's a scare tactic." And I'm like, okay, I figured that much. So we kind of just faked our names, no big deal, whatever. And we went through, and it was kind of the same thing, but in a very tamed very tame. So they had the shock room where it was gates, and then they had little zappers that would zap your
Yeah.
face and zap your hands, and they had a room where it's an assassination room. Basically, you stand on one end, and then they shoot air guns at you, stupid shit like that. But the following year, they did an upcharge, because at this time, this is when all these torture things were starting to become very big, and they did an upcharge of like $60. And Ryan Thompson, he did it. And you don't know who Ryan Thompson. He's an old haunter that we're going to get on here, but he did it because he lives out there, and he went with us when we went the year before, and he's like, well, I did. He's like, I did the upcharge one, and I'm like, how was it? He's like, they pulled me out. I go, why'd they pull you out? And they basically just the same. This was like, you literally were paying to go and get fucking tortured. Like, they waterboarded you. Like, they did all kinds of stupid shit. And I'm like, why would you do that? First off, he's like, well, I wanted to go through, but I guess I can't remember exactly what happened, but when they pulled him out because they thought he said the safe word, and he didn't. But they thought he did, and they were like, well, sorry, we're letting you out. And that was after the first thing. So there was 5 things you had to get through. And that was the first one. I was like, dude, that's bullshit. Because they basically just ripped you off. I go, did they give you your money back? He's like, no. And I asked him, let you do it again? He goes, no. And I'm like, that's BS. And a lot of haunts were doing that. So.
Yeah. Because at 17th Door, we did have a safe word, and it was mercy. But we also, as an actor, we called them bitch sticks. They were glow sticks on a little necklace, and that was for people who couldn't get shocked or, for heart conditions or whatever. We were okay with it. Most of the time, like most of the coworkers that I had, if someone said mercy, we would ask them, you want out completely or you want out of the room? And most of the time they were like, we just want out of the room. We want to see what the rest is. And we're like, okay. So we would take them around the little curtain and have them wait for the rest of the group. We also would do for the little bitch sticks. If a guy was wearing it, it was my goal in the short bus to get rid of it. That was the whole purpose of me being in there, was being so drunk that I was telling people, oh, you're wearing a bitch stick. Like, what kind of man does that? And people would give it to me. And at the end of the night, I had like 150 of them in my hand. And I was walking out going, here you go. You can have them back. But I mean, it was always, had a lot of people doing it. And especially in the short bus, because it was moving. A lot of people got claustrophobic in that because it was so tiny. Dude, and we would fit like 10 people in that. Plus the 2 actors that were in there. And so we had a little panic button. So we would hit it and get them out and have them wait or walk them out or whatever. But my thing with like haunts, that I loved working it because it was one of those things where I was like, I could touch people. This is fucking cool. Like,
I can imagine working. It's fun. No doubt about it. But as an entertainment value, no. And that's the thing too, because I heard that their designs are really good. I want to go, but I'm not into that, and I'll just.
Well, here's the thing.
I won't enjoy it.
Me experiencing it personally, it's not as bad as it sounds. It really isn't. I mean,
yours have been though.
Yeah, but like 2016, I got shocked because Char recognized me right when I walked in the room, so she kept hitting the button on my chair.
Of course she would.
Yeah, and then you go to the other rooms. There's a fence where you have to try to get out with a riddle, and everybody's holding hands. If you don't get out, you get shocked, and it goes through everybody.
Yeah.
And the other room, you got the janitor in the gym locker area, and then you go into the bus and stuff like that. So it's not as bad as how it sounds in the sense. Everything, like the majority of it, is a lot of facade stuff, and characters interacting with themselves and using the guests as quote unquote decoys or different items in their area to work around. So
I mean, that's how it is.
I enjoyed it.
If you walk through it and you're like, oh, this isn't phasing me, obviously they're going to be like, whatever, like they're going to go for someone else in the group.
Right.
And most of the time, so you can more like experience and stuff. But I mean, most of the time we were just using everyone as they were there as props for us, you
Right.
know. Each room was
Yeah.
something different. And so it was just, I mean, it was fun to work, don't get me wrong, but recently going, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I used to walk through every single night, you know, and I was totally okay when I worked there. But going through now, they have upped their level to the point where I'm like, I don't think I can ever come back, especially because the fact that they had a room, I think we went 2018 season, and you're getting shot with empty paintball
so stupid.
shorts because
It's so
I went after
stupid.
practice. I had welts up and down my arm, and I knew what was coming, and I turned my complete body because I was like, I'm not getting shot in the face. And everyone can aim at one person or they can aim at whoever they want to aim, and it automatically fires. Like, you don't have to be hands not on the gun, and it'll still shoot.
You're just holding
And
it.
it was just, yeah, and it was horrible. Like, that sucked. And I was like, this is, and then the worst part about that was after we got done, we ended up walking around, and there was a vet that came through, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was getting shot by all the guns because he was like, shoot me, and I was like, I'm not gonna shoot this guy.
Yeah.
You know, my friend's in the room, I'm just gonna point my gun at her because I worked with her, you know.
Yeah.
Let her get hit. And the worker that was there actually went and faced all the guns towards him, and he was just sitting in his wheelchair getting shot. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, no thank you.
Nope.
But anyway,
At that point I was like, I'm done. I don't think I can go back.
yeah.
Okay, so that 2016, did you only work there 1 year, right? Because then you went over in 2017. That's when you jumped ship and went on to another ship.
Yeah, basically.
Went on to
Yeah.
a more entertaining
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, so I ended up jumping over to the Queen 2017.
Dark Harbor.
So
Yeah.
talk about that. You know, how was your first experience, your first year experience there as opposed to 17th door, and you know, the dynamic there with the people you were working with, because I know it's vastly different.
Yeah, it was hard. Like, it was really hard jumping from a place where I can touch people to a place where I'm going over and I'm like, this is new. Like, completely new. I definitely think my first year was the easiest that I've ever done because it was one of those things where we had such a loose range on us. I mean, going over, I didn't know anyone, you know. I had no idea what it was, never heard of it. I ended up going like the year prior, and I was like, that's the first time that I've ever actually heard of it, but I didn't know about like auditions. I didn't know who people were, like nothing. And so I was like, it was hard for me to get into the groove over there just because I was so used to touching people and grabbing people and cussing at people. Like, it was something that I had to like remind myself, like, don't do that, don't do that,
Yeah.
don't do that, you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean, but
how did you find out about the audition process then? If you didn't know anybody or had, you know, got info on it, did you just happen to see it online, or?
Actually, Squeaks
Oh, really?
ended up reaching out to me because I ended up getting pictures with him and,
Gotcha.
you know, Billy and Leon and everyone, because it was, I think the Slider Unite was that first year, right?
2016 was the first year, yeah.
And I ended up going over, I have pictures of like Rissy and Kevin and just everyone. And I ended up like, you know, a year later, I was like, okay, I'm going back to 17th door. Like, it's closer to home sort of thing. And I ended up getting a message from Squeaks just out of nowhere on Facebook because he found me and was like, hey, you want to come over to Slide? We need a female. And I was like, okay, let me know when. And at that point, I was like, I was already starting to get a part of sliding because I call him my brother. He works at Knott's in Forsaken Doorstop. He actually was like, hey, come to the ring, come hang out. And I was like, what is that? Like, I had no idea. I had no idea about sliding. Like,
Right.
I went to Knott's like 2 or 3 times and that was about it. So I didn't really know what sliding was, and I showed up and watched everyone, and I was like, okay, I'm getting all my gear. So I literally by the next week I had all of my gear ready and ended up showing up and sliding and stuff. And I think that's how Squeaks found me, was he was looking or something like that, and he ended up messaging me and said, hey, we need a girl slider, come over. And I was like, well, I'm not good, like I just started sliding. And he was like, nah, you're good, like come over, we'll help teach. And I was like, okay. So I started going
What's
out.
her name? That's what's her name left.
Artemis.
Jeez. Artemis, yeah.
Yeah, she left to go to the Ringling Brothers
Yeah.
school or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so I went over and started sliding with all the boys. I mean, it was Squeaks, Kevin, Evil, Fido, and then obviously, it was Sinatra, Scuba Steve, Nemo. Like, it was all the older guys at Clean.
Yeah.
And they ended up, helping me get through it. And then that's when Fidget and Pongo actually came over from Alabama. And we ended up going through auditions because it was, like a sliding test sort of thing. But they ended up needing me because we did our auditions after everyone else did their auditions.
Yeah.
But they were like, hey, come down to like help. And I was like, okay. So I ended up going down, and I was up on the ship, and I was helping, I forgot who it was, but we were helping like getting people ready. Like I was talking to people, like trying to calm their nerves down and stuff. And I get a call and was like, hey, we need you for this video, come down. And I was like, what do you mean?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. And they were like, go get your gear and get down here. And I was like, okay. So I got my gear, went over, ended up putting my pads on, and I just slid with them and stuff. And then a few days later, we ended up having our auditions, which was just the slider test, basically. And it was a tie between me and Fidget for streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up jumping up into a kamikaze, and she slid out, and I shoulder checked her and broke her glasses.
Oh, oops.
I ended up having a dislocated shoulder. And she had the broken glasses, obviously. And she was on the floor because, I mean, I hit her hard. I was up in the air. There was nothing I could have done.
Yeah.
So I walked over, I popped my shoulder back, walked over to her, looked at her, said, you good? She goes, yeah, I'm good. I grabbed her hand, we got up and started going right back to the test.
Nice.
And so that was like super hard for them to decide. And then, eventually Fidget ended up pulling herself. So I ended up getting the sliding show or on the slider team for my first year over there. And that was definitely a weird transition, trying to come up with a character, trying to figure out who I am, that was super hard, like to try to get into it because I've never done anything like that.
So tell us,
you got thrown right in the mix right away. You didn't have any time to ease into it.
So tell us that process for us who don't know the Dark Harbor way, I guess you would say. When you got into your character, did they give you? They said, "Here's your costume. Now go think of something," or you had to come up with your own costume?
We actually had Katie, which is the head of costume, and Jeff, and one of the other girls that was head of makeup, come down to the rink one day when we were practicing, and they handed us little like makeup thing. So it was like a basic plain face that you could draw on it to figure out what your design you wanted to be on your face. We basically got told clowns and bright colors. That's what we got told. So it was like, okay, well, what colors am I going to do? Obviously, clowns have like stripes and polka dots and everything. So I was just trying to go off of something like that. And I was like, I'm going to get a tutu. Like, that's going to be my thing, is I want a tutu. So I ended up getting a tutu made.
That's bigger than you are.
This one is now, because it's a double layer tutu, but yes. But I ended up getting a tutu and ended up just not, like, the way I did my makeup, I ended up hating it, in all honesty. Because I wanted like a spiral on one eye and like just a basic clown sort of look on everything else. And We were there for what's it called? When you go through all the mazes and stuff and you are placed in your spots.
The walkthroughs,
Rehearsals.
Orientation.
the rehearsals.
Yeah.
Orientation, yeah.
Yeah. And the makeup artists were there. And they wanted to test people to see how long it was actually going to take them to do makeup. So they ended up finding my makeup card and doing it. And with the spiral and stuff. And I have pictures of it. And I absolutely hated the way it looked. And I was like, I don't like it. Like, I hate this. And then it became first night. And my first night, I ended up having Jay as my makeup artist. And he saw my makeup card, and I looked at him and I was like, just ignore that and do what you want. And he's like, really? And I was like, do what you want. And he was like, okay.
Jay Quintana?
Mm-hmm. And he ended up just doing whatever he wanted. And that's the look that I went through for the rest of the year because I had the teardrops and everything else. And I mean, I always change my face anyways, but
Yeah.
getting my character to where it is now was definitely it was a progress to go through because my first year I had no idea, I didn't know what I can get away with.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you had to
And
find
so-
your bearings.
Yeah, so I was playing it safe, and I was just sliding and doing the show or like hiding and not really doing much. And then everyone was like, do something else. Go like be rude. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like
So
I didn't
now-
know I can do that.
Now that you're at Queen Mary, your character is developing and the name Looney comes up. First of all, is that something you came up with? Did somebody give you, and how did that character come to be? Like, what made that stick?
I ended up getting my name from Evil and Squeaks.
Okay.
It was given to me. Basically, we were at the rink, and they were trying to do like character stuff, and I blacked out. I don't remember what I did. And at the end of the night, they ended up like coming up and was like, okay, we're giving everyone names. And I was like, okay. So they blessed us. So you get on your knees and they go, oh, like from the QM sliders, blah, 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 blah. Your official haunt name was Looney. And they push your head back and they're like, okay, fuck you, go on, do whatever. And I was like, okay, and I never knew why they gave me that name, in all honesty. Like it was never really told, but that was the
Actually, to
name I
this day,
got.
you still don't know?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
To this
with
day.
that now known, did you like the name to begin with, or did you just embrace it like, okay, that's my name?
When they gave me the name at first I was like, okay, like cool, whatever, like it's just like a nickname,
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I can use this to my advantage. Like I can turn this alter ego into this psychotic sort of Looney character, and I ended up basing part of my character actually on the Tasmanian devil.
Oh.
Okay.
Because he's super crazy and he's bouncing everywhere. So my first year, that's what I was doing. I was nonstop like him, and that's why I was like, okay, I'm gonna base my character, Looney Tunes, like I'm gonna base it off of one of their characters,
Right. Okay,
and
that's
that's
smart.
That is smart.
Yeah, so I mean that's how it was, and then eventually I started to get into it and was like, okay, I gotta make it more like this, and eventually change it, and so it's a lot more shit talking, and
No.
stop.
Stop.
Oh, stop
Okay,
it.
so, and that was year one.
Yeah.
That's 2017. So 2018 comes around, or 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about like the group that you were in, how you interacted with them, as far as, because from what I understand is you quote unquote have a twin brother and a quote unquote father, or had.
Actually, my first year it was triplets.
Who was the trip? Well, you explained.
It was me, Nick, and Andrew, gas can.
Gotcha.
And we were the triplets. We did sort of like a monkey see, monkey do, like a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil sort of thing.
Nice.
We didn't have makeup the same any night. We didn't do it like that. Like it was just you know, it was more of like an interactive thing with us.
Yeah.
And we were known as Evil's children, and Megan's, or malicious. We were their kids. So that's the part that I definitely played up to a lot because I mean I looked like a kid. So I definitely pulled the like I'm gonna act like a kid. I'm gonna go run, be batshit crazy. I'm gonna annoy my dad. Like that's the point,
Right.
you know. So I'd walk up and I'd push him and then run away, or like I'd walk up and smack Nick, you know, or kill us or whatever. Like that's what I was doing. And then so that's what it was. Like that's what the cycle was. But we ended up like working with everyone. It was super cool, you know. Like I didn't like the fact that I was a girl slider. Like, what'd you do to get it? And
You're like, I know how to slide.
yeah.
Stupid.
And it was basically like my first year, it was so different because my first year, everyone was terrified of us. Like the sliders, the group. We were the ones like not to fuck with, like don't mess with them. Like if anything happens, like the sliders itself already had a small clique of people that they were like close with. And so if you weren't inside that group and you were outside the group, it was one of those things like, oh, I'm afraid to go over and talk to him. And so my first year, I was like, well, I'm not just going to sit here. I want to make new friends, you know, like,
Yeah.
so I went out and I started talking to people and people were like, oh, like, I didn't realize you guys were like this. And I was like what? Like, I'm just trying to be nice. Like, want to come sit with me, come sit with me, you know? Like, I'm not going to be like, no, you can't sit with us, you know? Like,
It was like that.
we're not mean girls here. Okay?
It was like that at Knott's. My first few years, the vets, this idiot and the other idiots, they were all
I
like
hated
that.
that.
These guys. It was like, yeah,
I
because
hated
they
it.
always had like a clique. They always they didn't have a clique. Everybody labeled them as a clique, and
yeah, and that's
and it was funny because I would
was
talk
like
to
Queen
people.
too.
Yeah, because then when like I started sliding with them or hanging with them a little bit more, everyone's like, "Oh, you fell into the clique." It's like, what fucking clique, dude? Go talk to
Yeah.
them, or just go do your job and just or don't be stupid. It's pretty simple. It's like they don't want you
Yeah.
around because there's a reason for it, or if you feel that way. Or my first question would be is like, well, do you talk to them? No, they think they're cool. How do you know that?
Yeah.
It's like,
And
go
that was
talk to
definitely
them.
the mentality,
Yeah, it's stupid.
you know, and then, but I mean, everyone I worked with, I loved them, everyone knew like I was light enough. They were like, hey, let's try this. And I was like, all right, let's do that. All right.
Yeah,
Like, I
because you
didn't
were
care.
like 75 pounds.
What are you 80 now?
Yeah. No, I'm 115 now.
80
Gain and weight.
Oh, you got that
4
COVID
pounds.
15, huh?
What happens when you're in a healthy relationship?
Yeah, that's very
Get
true.
chunky.
It is very true. It's
Yeah,
called
with a
chunky
chunk.
happiness. So that's what happened to Matt, huh?
Okay,
You can't
so
hear
get
me,
through
can
the
he?
first year, I mean, obviously you're still trying to get your feet wet. I mean, halfway through, I mean, what was your thought process? Like, oh, this is cool, or I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing here, who I want to work with, type of thing. I mean, everybody's process is different. So, I mean, especially when you're coming into a new area and being in a high profile position right away.
Yeah. About halfway through the season, I mean, like towards the end, it was like, okay, I get a hang of this. Like, I got it. Like, I know what I'm doing now, and I know what I can get away with. I was like, okay, and so I ended up putting safety pins in my nose, and that became a whole trademark for like my character. But it was one of those things where I was like, okay, like I'm home. Like it hit me, and I was like, you know what, this is my home. Like this is a place where I'm gonna be here until my legs give out. Just I've never felt a haunt community be that close knit where everyone is a family and everyone is treated the same, you know. And it was crazy to see, you know, because it did become my family outside of, you know, my actual family.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you know, some of my, you know, I met some super close friends, like some of my best friends I'd met there, you know. And it's crazy, you know, like, because I was like, this is home. Like, I don't want to go anywhere else. Like, I think going from the series of unfortunate events and going to 17th door and learning their way and then going to Queen, it was
That
a
must have
right
been like
thing.
but it must have been like a culture shock from going 17th door to Dark Harbor.
Yeah. Like in the beginning half of the season, it was, you know, don't touch people, don't cuss at people, you know, that kind of thing. And then towards the end of the season, I definitely did get really comfortable. Um, when the race war started.
Race war?
What?
Like
I started
literally,
a
or
race war
did you really?
on accident. It was, well, okay, wasn't my fault. Wasn't my fault.
Well, you said I started
Um,
it, so that.
Everyone's gonna say that I started it because of what I did. Because towards the end of the season, I started to get my voice. I was like, you know, but towards the end of the season, I ended up meeting this guy, and he was an old school Knots monster. He met his wife, everything there. Super sweet guy. He was in a wheelchair. Well, his family wanted to go in through Soulmate at the time in the back of the boat. So I walked him over. You know, it was me and Killis, and we walked him over. And a guy ended up coming up behind me, and he decided he wanted to grab my ass. And I turned around so quick, and I wanted to hit this guy, but I didn't. I was like, okay, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, I went off on this guy, and this guy freaked out. He ended up running to the porta potties. His girlfriend and his sister were standing right behind him when he did it. And they decided to come up to me because I was talking to security at that point, because they saw it happen. They saw us walking over from the show, you know,
Yeah.
to walk him. Because I was like, you know, I'm just walking my friends into the maze, you know, and they were like, yeah, we saw what happened. And I was talking to security. His girlfriend and his wife, or his girlfriend and his sister, came up and basically looked at me and said, "You're white underneath that makeup, so that's why you think it's okay." And I was like, "Hello?" And they were like, because they were like, "Well, where's he at?" And I was like, "He's in this porta potty. I saw him walk in there." And so they're screaming, "You're white. You think you can fucking get away with anything?" Like, I was like, you know, all the security standing there looking at me, looking at them, going, "You didn't even do anything wrong. Like, you want them kicked out because they groped you, you know?" Well, they started screaming it so loud. There actually was some, I would say, redneck people, and although like they looked like they were redneck,
Yeah.
actually hopping the barricades of Soulmate to jump to them.
Wow.
And it turned into this whole brawl. Like, "You're Hispanic, you're this, you're that." I was sitting there going, oh my God, what the hell did I just start?
As you walk
So,
away, skipping.
No, so like the little white girl, like I ended up having to like push her to the sea container, and I'm trying to separate the girls. Nick's trying to separate the guys because the guys are going like full blown, like brawling at this point.
Wow.
Security's jumping in, big security's jumping in, and I'm sitting there going, dude, what did I start? And I was like, I'm gonna get fired. I just started a race war. And literally they were like, go backstage, go backstage, go backstage. So I'm like, okay. I beelined it to backstage because I was like, I'm gonna get fired over this. Like, this is horrible. It's my first year. Like, I'm gonna get fired. Like, freaked out. I ended up going in to clock out that night, and David handed me a top performer shirt.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, thanks. Like,
You're like,
I guess
"Wait,
I'm
what?"
not getting fired?
Yeah.
Not getting fired? Okay. That's
Huh.
weird.
You're like, huh?
Yeah.
So you
But-
so after your first year and you do a race war, the next year is actually 2018. You were there at 2018, right? Okay. So tell us about that year.
Yeah, we're
It
going year
definitely
by
was
year here.
like going back. It was definitely it solidified to me that that was home.
Yeah.
I felt so comfortable going back. Like I knew who my artist was gonna be. I knew the colors I was gonna change. Like we ended up doing a day where we all got together to do our costumes with Katie, so that way she knew what our plan was, and we didn't have to like go home and do it and come back and she'd be like, oh no, I don't like it, she
Yeah.
was already there. She was giving us materials and stuff. That is when we ended up becoming twins, me and Killis. And that's when we actually were like, okay, let's do same makeup, like let's just have fun with it. And so we would go in a makeup and Lily would sit side by side, and Jay would do our makeup at the exact same time, just different colors. And then that's when we did all that. And then that's when my Looney character really started to evolve, was my second year, because I was like, all right, well, now I know what I can't get in trouble for, or what I won't get in trouble for. Let's push it.
Yeah.
Let's see how much farther I can go. And that was your first year too, dudes, huh?
Yes.
I was like, well, it's because my first year, Beats wasn't there. We actually had a girl who was in one of the mazes be our manager. So it was one of those things where she didn't really know what to do to control the sliders. So she was just like,
Yeah.
do what you want, And Beats came over and I was like, I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna push it this year. So I was, I was going batshit crazy that year. Like I was bouncing around. That was the first year that I actually ran with someone. Like I usually don't run with anyone. And I ended up running with Beetle Bunny.
Beetle Bunny.
And so definitely like it's when I started to evolve and was like, okay, like I gotta get progressively older in that sense, because I was like, obviously my character is going year by year sort of thing. I have to evolve it. So that's sort of what I did, my second year was super fun. Yeah, I like to talk shit.
How did you evolve your character from the first year to the second year? What changes did you do to evolve your character?
Well, obviously,
I would say her biggest thing is she got a lot more mouthy.
yeah.
That's a big
I got more mouthy.
How?
I wasn't acting like a child.
Okay. How old is your character supposed to be?
Now or back then?
Well,
2018.
Yeah, in 2018, you became more mouthy. So, like from
Yeah.
17 to 18, what did you like say? Okay, in your character years, you kind of skipped a few years, made her. Okay.
Yeah. So my first year, I went from being like the 7, 8-year-old,
Okay.
with the ponytails and like that kind of stuff. My second year, I ended up jumping to 13 because I was like, it's a preteen, body starts to change sort of thing. I'm going to start being mouthy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Teen.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that's what I skip. Sometimes I skip, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how it goes. Obviously, with the COVID and stuff, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up jumping a few years. So that way I was, back talking to people. I was making fun of people. Like I was being the typical bully.
Okay.
Like trying to get people to, like I was trying to push people's buttons to try to get them to fight. Like my goal was to get people to fight me. Like I was pushing and just making them mad and mad and mad. Like my goal was to see how far I can push them.
It's because you're white.
And that was like my whole point of that.
Shocker,
was just
right
to see.
Shocker.
It's because
Oh,
you're
big shocker.
white and you think you can get away with it.
You're never gonna give that up now.
I'm telling you, man.
That's so funny. That's the best thing ever. So you're pushing people's buttons. You're trying to get people to punch you in your face. Why? Why that?
know.
Why that particularly? I don't. I
I just
don't.
wanted to see.
I get people-
thing. I think.
I
and
get-
it's
Yeah.
okay.
I get people. I get trying to get piss people off. But have you ever gotten hit? No.
Fortunately, she hasn't.
That's good. That's good. We won't call you Matt Kinner then. Fucking guy got hit all the time.
Legit.
God,
he got
man.
hit so bad every year.
Dude, seriously, 2015 when I came and worked, like it was every single night I was there, he got hit like twice. And I'm like, dude,
Same at Dark
what
Harbor
in the
too. He got
F?
hit every night.
Like what the hell?
And
I'm
Beast
like,
had to babysit him.
I know. I'm like, what are you doing to get hit, bro?
Kinder's just
get
a
it.
walking target, though.
God, man.
Yeah.
Anywho,
But
That's why his name was Bullseye.
yeah,
I gave him a
No.
nickname that in 2015. I don't remember what it was. I can't remember for the
Let
life.
down.
No,
It was Let Down.
what was Kinder's
2015.
plot name? Let Down
let
Yeah.
down.
At Dark Harbor it was Bullseye.
from Guru.
Yeah, I named him Bullseye at Dark Harbor.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, my whole goal was just to push people. Push people around. See what I can. If I can, irritate people.
So were
Like
you?
that was my whole goal.
You were still running with the triplet thing and the dad.
Twins.
The twins.
We were twins at that
Yeah.
point.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gas Can was no longer there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we ended up just doing the twins and stuff. So that played well in the show. But I mean, most of the time I didn't run with anyone. I don't like to run with people. My mind's all over the place when I'm there.
Yeah.
So I don't like to run with someone because 1 second I can be walking completely straight and just flip a bitch and turn around and go do something else, and a lot of people just don't understand my mentality when I look at something. Like I'm probably going to hit a slide, and people just couldn't read that. So I mean, but my whole goal was just, slide and do what I do best, and
To be
try to do that.
A thorn in people's side. That was what she's trying to
Yeah.
say here.
Yeah.
Throw that thorn in deeper until they snap.
Yeah. And that's eventually when I started to realize that I can actually hide in tiny places,
Yeah.
which I think is one of my all-time favorite things to do is hide. So I actually was hiding behind the open gates, and there was a little hole that I can actually see, and that's some of the best pictures I've ever gotten. Was the fog, and I would hit it and scream, and I have like the best pictures of these girls in the air, like terrified faces. And I was like, oh, I can hide places. I'm so tiny. Like, it works.
Nice.
There's a lot of nooks and crannies at Dark Harbor too. Like it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
the boys, like people like Rampage and Vertigo and those guys, they can't hide there because they're bigger guys.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But
So
I mean, it was fun. Like, it was definitely, my year to see what I can branch out to do.
yeah. Because you
just
need
to
to do
see.
something outside of just the show, and that was the idea. It's like the show is secondary to what
Yeah,
was a character, because the show was only theoretically 30 minutes a night, and then the rest of the
Yeah.
night you have to be out there engaging people.
Yeah.
and definitely my second year is the year that I actually got deeply involved into my character development, and it wasn't just show. My first year I was like, whatever, like I can do whatever I want, act like a stupid kid. And then my second year, when Dieterman ended up coming around, he was like, it's a character thing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna develop it more and continue to evolve who Looney is and go from there. That's my number one priority when it comes to Haunt now is my character.
That always should
Show
be.
is just on the back burner.
Yeah. It really should be
You know,
because
and-
the show comes naturally.
Yeah.
When you develop that character, that's the show just falls through.
Yeah,
'Cause you then-
and it was definitely, I can't stress that enough to, anyone who comes up and is like, hey, do you have any advice for like auditions or whatever. And I'm like, honestly, you got to start thinking characters. You got to get deeply involved with your character before you do anything else, because it's not going to flow right if you don't have that character mindset behind.
Yeah. Ask Chump. He knows. Like he wants to show something else, and he freezes. So if you got to have it in your mind, that's half the battle won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah. I mean, I get it, because I think 2017, it was actually my first year ever going through a real audition, like character audition.
yeah.
Because we never did that. Like 17 door, I walked up and they were like, okay, do a pop-off scare. Like that was it. And like scream or something like that. That was about it. But my first year was just a slider test. If you got on the sliding team, you didn't have to audition.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
but
that
when
was
it
a
came,
different process.
yeah, and then when it came to obviously 2017, we did regular auditions and then we did our slider auditions. So it was one of those things where it was definitely interesting, because the way David Wally did his auditions, it made me jittery. Like it was the weirdest thing because,
It raises the
he
stress
talks
and
to you.
anxiety levels for sure.
Yeah, and he basically is like, okay, like there's a bug inside you and you're feeling it deeper and deeper and you feel it coming out of your skin. And like just the way he put everything, like I was getting like goosebumps doing it. And I was like, okay, like Looney comes out
That's
right then
kind of
and there.
cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it definitely helped a lot of the newbies that year too, because most of the time the newbies are going in newbies. Like they have no idea what they're doing. They have a few rookies or a few vets in there, but that's about it. When we were in there, it was the vets and we did our thing, and then the newbies went, so they can see what it actually was like to go through the audition rather than just going in blind. And that was actually super cool. Like, and it definitely helps, because, and then we ended up doing the slider audition and that kind of stuff. So
Well, okay,
that was cool.
Let's branch off on that a little bit, since you said you went through audition, but the slider audition was separate. For people that may be watching this that don't know, talk a little bit about that process of the slider side moving forward on that, because some people, I guarantee them, like, well, how come they didn't talk about that? So talk a little bit about that process as well.
Obviously the regular auditions, he had the 4 walls, like a X shape, so you could do pop-out scares. He had you chasing after him in the room, singing lullabies, which was super cool and like unique. And then a few days later, we ended up going to Queen and doing the slider audition. So basically, what our slider audition was pop stop. So can you stop on a dime? Can you bail out? Can you slide left and right? Like, it was a whole unique test because we did like the slalom. So it was cones set out in spaces and you had to slide like you were weaving through it, and then you had to stop. And then that was definitely, I mean, I've done it the year before, but people who were new to it were like very iffy about it. But we were like, well, this is what we've been teaching you, is how to do all this stuff for the audition.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh yeah, we have been doing this, so it made them feel better that we actually had practiced that before. I think the scariest part about that audition was the fact that David, the head boss, was standing there and you had to stop as close as you could to him. And it was like, oh shit, don't hit him, don't hit him, don't hit him. And I think that's what everyone was sort of afraid to do, was hitting the big boss, because we were like, dude, if we hit him, are we gonna get fired? Like, we didn't even get hired yet, but are we gonna get fired?
Yeah. Right. You're hired, you're fired.
Yeah.
Like, so I want to do something. Like, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Let's go ahead and run that.
Yeah. So we ended up doing all that and stuff, and then. Yeah.
So,
am I missing anything else of that test?
No, you pretty much touched on it. I wanted you to
Yeah,
explain it, your experience, because I mean, coming from me is a different experience. You're on the other side of it. So,
yeah.
but you said, yeah, you guys taught, we taught people beforehand. So talk a little bit about that, like what you mean by beforehand for those that don't know. I mean, obviously a lot of people that see this are going to know exactly what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
theoretically
Um,
there's stuff out there that, people don't know
yeah.
about.
Basically, before any of the auditions went down, the QM Sliders ended up having a boot camp at the rink, Chapman Sports Rink in Buena Park or Garden Grove. And we were actually teaching people how to slide. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? The right way, I guess.
The safe
So we
way.
were teaching people,
We were
yeah, the
developing
safe
them, yeah,
way,
developing, yeah.
how to slide sideways and how to stop. Like, how do you put your foot? You're going to turn it, you're going to stay straight. How are you going to stop? You're not going to stop with your foot like this. You're going to stop with your foot sideways because it gives you an instant stop. And we would just teach people basically the fundamentals of what sliding was, and how it's developed, and what we would go through on a test is what we train them to go through. So everything we did on the actual test, we were doing at boot camp, but they didn't know that up until we actually tested.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where it was like, we're teaching them how to stop properly. We're having some of the biggest guys stand out in front of them saying, you're going to run at them full speed and stop. Don't hit them. We were doing it up against the wall. We were like, okay, go full speed and stop at the wall. Because if
Yeah.
you don't, you're going face first into the wall. And we were teaching people how to stop and how to slide and everything safely for if they were going to eventually end up being on the team. And not only were we doing sliding, we also would split the groups into two, and we would do character development as well. So we had someone over there, and then we would go through, just the basic stupid shit you can think of. You're a vampire in the sun. How would you act?
Yeah.
You're turning into a werewolf. We were just throwing out different scenarios at them just to see how they would act. And then we would be like, okay, you're a clown. Okay, you're this. Just trying to see where they were at to give them sort of an idea of what regular audition was plus sliding auditions.
Yeah.
Gives them the idea it gave us the idea, like what their creative range is and how they can think on their feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and see how fast they react.
Because I mean, there's some people like completely freeze. They're like, okay, or we'll give them the opportunity. Hey, okay, what character do you want to portray? They tell us, and then I was like, okay, now portray it in your image, and they can't do it. So.
And a lot of people who did that had like a really badass idea for a character, but then they were like, I don't know how I would act in that sense. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you need to change it to something you would be able to have it portrayed as. And so it was a lot. Like, we went through how many months?
It was months.
It was
a week,
months of training.
Months. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we started in March and ran all the way up to September.
August. It was late August is when our audition was.
Yeah.
But, and then the people who were taking the sliding test, we did have to have them get used to Queen's Ground, because at the rink, it's very slick. Very, very slick. And you come to Queen and it's like this gravel, and you're not going as fast, so you have to control yourself a lot because there's a lot of potholes everywhere. Like, you got to make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah. It's another thing too, is like, we had all these people that would come out to boot camp and learn and then not show up to the slider auditions. Why? I don't know, but it made our job easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also had people showing up who's never shown up to boot camp.
Yeah.
How do they do?
That was That was a weird situation.
Well, it was one of those things. It's like, okay, you've never been to boot camp, but let's see what you got. And it's like, it's clear that they weren't there because there was a lot of hiccups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were really rusty because they took that year off,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. So.
Well,
yeah,
plus we had people.
Go ahead.
Plus we had people showing up without pads.
Yeah, that happened too. It was crazy. So, but 2018 was my first exposure to how they did things there too. But, once we got an audition process, I was able to revamp it to where it was more functional to what we would
Where it
actually
needed
do
to
on a
be.
regular basis. Yeah, so
Yeah. And that definitely
kinda-
helped. Going from my first year, it was definitely going from my first year to my second year when you came in, it was definitely a huge change, and it was that change we sort of needed, because we needed that strong base. And you were like that strong base for us, to get us where all of our full potential can be.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what we needed.
Well, that's what David kind of told me. He's like, so this is what I need you to do. It's like, okay.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Sounds good to me, type of thing.
Yeah.
So that was all
Like,
2018, right? That was, I mean, that
Mhm.
was the biggest shift right there. And then now you go into 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, was there anything that you took from 2018 and applied it to 2019 as you went forward before the pandemic hit in 2020?
Yeah, I would say definitely, like, obviously my character and stuff, because I ended up going from probably about the age of 12, 13, my second year, to going to about 16, where I was just that rebellious teenager who is out of the house and piercing things she's not supposed to be, and like all that kind of stuff. And I ended up having my safety pins, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna I'm still gonna push people, but I want to see if I can get that growth factor out of people. I ended up, because we ended up having the bar tokens that year. And I developed my character, and I had my fanny pack with all the little tokens in it. And it was one of those things where people were wanting those tokens, and anyone who felt like they wanted it, and I knew they were disgusted by the fact that I had 2 safety pins in my nose because they thought it was fake, I was making them pull it. Yeah, I think that season I had three females come up to me and ask, "Is your safety pin real?" And I said, "Well, why wouldn't it be?" And they're like, "No, for real." And I'm like, "Well, if you want to find out, I'll give you 4 bar tokens if you pull it." And they were like, "Okay." And they thought it was fake. So when they pull it and realized my nose was moving for it, I had 3 girls turn around and throw up in the planners.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get in trouble. So I was like, I walked over, set the bar tokens down on the little like bench that they had right next to it, and I booked it. Because I was like, I'm going to get in trouble. I am going to get in trouble for this. Yeah. And then I think I walked up to you and I was like, geez, I just made 3 girls throw up in the planner. And you're like, what'd you do? And I was like, they pulled my safety pin. And you're like, nice. And I was like, okay.
That was their fault, though,
I was like, yeah, and it was just, I was making people do stupid shit for the tokens. Like, I was telling people to go find my name. What's my name? I said, you have up until the first show to find out my name. And they were like, what time's your first show? And I was like, it was like, what, 9:30 or something like that?
Yeah, it was 9:30, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you have up until then to find out what my name is. And they're like, okay. And they're coming back. And I told everyone, do not tell people my name. And they said, okay. I was like, give them a fake name or something. So people were coming up to me being like, your name's Gertrude. And I was like,
Gertrude.
what? No. Like, and everyone was just making up everyone was just making up the dumbest names for me. And then they would go to the first show and they would be like, oh, Looney. And they would be like, I could have guessed that. I was like, well, you didn't.
That's funny.
And it was just, Yeah, or I was just hiding them. Like I was just trying to be that obnoxious teenager that was like, I ran away from home. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
with evil, I was like, don't talk to me. You're my dad. That's gross. We can't be hanging out together, sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
I was doing the same with Nick or Killis. I was like he would walk up and try to talk to me or something, and I would just give him like this grossest look, and I'd be like, don't talk to me. We can't be seen in public. Like, I get it. You're my brother, but we can't be seen ever together.
You're like, yeah,
Like,
no.
just making jokes, you know, is more of like my year to like make jokes, but poke at people. Like,
Yeah,
but
tokens. Those were a
ooh,
little bit,
tokens.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
send me some more, because
okay.
you didn't even send me I have it, but you didn't even send me the one that I love, that Christmas one.
I got you.
That's my favorite one. So,
The
anyways,
Christmas, the
Scott's
one where I had the
Christmas lights on
yeah,
your head. I love.
yeah.
I don't know what it is about that look, but I freaking love
Oh,
it.
that was that food truck
It was
day.
that food truck. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, like, you do food truck stuff, and then you guys, like, as a team, and I think we'll ask this on, from here on out. Can ask this to all the members. Like, tell us about that. Like, you know, you guys do holiday ones, and then periodically we'll just do a regular one. But you go as Looney. What do you do to change up? Is it just strictly your look? Or, like, is there anything that you change character-wise when you go?
Most of the time it's a look. It just depends on the season. Because like for Halloween, you know, we came out as all of our characters when we first came out, and then we did a Christmas one, and that's when I came out as like an elf because I wanted to do something Christmas themed, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to come out as Looney. I wanted to come out as something new.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing a purge theme one. So I ended up buying
the best one. by
That one was
far.
rad, yeah.
yeah. I
I
ended
don't
up buying the
remember what
purge
I don't
mask.
remember what you look like.
I had I got it off of Amazon because it was super cheap, and I was like, okay, it'll be here, whatever. So I did my space buns, and then I was in like a bloody shirt, and then I had a bat, with some shorts and like suspenders and stuff, and then I ended up having the purge mask where it's the X's over my eyes and it lit up.
Oh, okay. I remember that one. I didn't know that was you.
So yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, I'm glad. I can't be more grateful for the people who invite us out.
Yeah.
You know, because it made us have our name back out. Because we were so dormant during COVID.
Yeah.
That it actually got our name put back out there, for people to come out and come see us. And I mean, because
2020 was a shit year.
yeah, that's eventually actually how I ended up getting my day job, was through Street Food Tuesdays, was because Scooter's Italian Ice is there.
Right.
And I became super close with all the employees, and so, you know, being able to work on the truck and then be a part of the QM sliders, where, you know, we have full range to come out whenever we want now.
That's cool.
You know, they're like, just let us know what Tuesday, we'll black it out so we don't have like, because they do fundraisers and stuff for different schools and everything like that. They're like, we'll black it out so you guys are here. You know, they're super sweet. You know, that definitely gave us a name.
Yeah.
Like, or put our name back out there. And so it was, I mean, it's super fun to go out there. I mean, the ground is like Queen's ground, basically. We get to do what I want. They take care of us, you know, like, which is, you know, another thing I'm super grateful for, because, you know, they don't have to feed us.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, but they always come over and they're like, here's your ticket for food, you
That's
know,
so cool.
like, and you can just go up to the trucks, and I mean, anyone could walk up to Scooters and be like, hey, can I get a churro or something? And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, they don't care.
That's cool.
You know, and so it was definitely, it was amazing. Like, the first few times that we went out, it was so good. Like, it was unique. It was something different.
Yeah.
You know, because it was just so funny. Just, you know, because we're all taking breaks and stuff behind the trucks, and there's just cars passing by, and they're like,
the fuck, yeah.
You know, because there's just clowns in the middle of a Home Depot parking lot.
I remember when Scott told me about that for the very first time, and I'm like, what what are you talking about? Food truck like Tuesday? I'm like, that's cool. You're gonna go, and then he's like, yeah, the Queen Mary sliders. I'm like, oh, you're gonna go. I was thinking like you're gonna go because when I lived in Huntington, we would go there all the time and get sushi burritos.
Different location, and that truck does not exist anymore. I'm super bummed.
And yeah, he told me about that. And then when I saw the photos, I was like, that's freaking rad.
Yeah.
That's like the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I thought that was. I wanted to talk about that because I think that's really neat, and everybody should go check it out whenever you guys do it because it looks cool. I haven't had the pleasure to go yet. One of these days I will. One of these days I will, but
doing that was definitely like a blessing in disguise, because it got our name out there for Horrorville.
Yeah.
They started to realize us. They started to realize us because of Tricks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Trix came out and she would scare us up with us. And that's, Street Food Tuesday brought us together sort of as a closer unit with Trix.
Yeah.
Because all of us knew her and stuff, but, with Dieterman and Street Food and stuff, like it definitely that was our time to be able to get to know her better and to end up merging with Trix to be like, she's our sister at another park, and we're all super close with her, and we're all super proud of her, and so like we love when she comes out with us, and then her talking to the owners at Horrorville to bring us out, she's definitely another blessing to us. She helped us get our name out there again, and have a table and do all that kind of stuff. So, shout out to them.
Well, you gotta get.
Yeah, it's definitely given us an opportunity to branch out.
Well, you gotta give you guys. You gotta give yourself credit too, because you guys are a great group. You guys are good monsters.
Yeah, it was hard, going dormant and stuff. So for Street Food Tuesdays and then Tricks with Horrorville and stuff like that that was definitely the big two things that sort of put our name back out there.
Yeah, nobody, no one expected the Dark Harbor to go away. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all bummed, but at the same time, everybody is still out there doing what they love to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've some of them came with me to Hayride, and some of them went to KSF. Those that wanted to scare, and they all got in. And
didn't some go to Six Flags?
Huh?
Didn't a couple go to Six Flags?
No.
No.
We went to visit and support.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I thought a couple of people went and worked there.
Technically, the only person from Dark Harbor that went out there was Sergio.
And Sergio, yeah. That's right. Sergio, he's not part of the QM Slider team, but he was a Dark Harbor guy. He went out there.
Yeah, I could have swore you said one of your monsters went over there. Two of them went over there, but well, yeah. I think we kind of went through your history. What's your future plans? Are you thinking about going somewhere this year? You have a, place in mind that you want to audition for, or?
I don't think I'm gonna do anything this year. I'm actually now a part of the Nights of Horror podcast. So helping him, record things, take pictures, do all that kind of stuff, be able to go with him to a bunch of different haunts. I would say the only thing that I have in mind that I would work every once in a while is there was actually a guy at Street Food that came up to us and wanted a few of us to work a car wash last season.
Oh, Darian.
Darian. Super sweet guy. The grounds at this car wash was amazing. It was like
Jeremy.
100-foot car wash.
Jeremy, dude, the ground was so nice there.
Yeah.
It was butter. And we filmed the promo video and everything like that. And his medical condition, he just wasn't able to do it.
That's unfortunate.
So, yeah. So I'm trying to see at this point what's going to go on, because he wanted me to come over as, basically sort of like a manager. He would come to me for whoever put in an application like, hey, do you know this person? Like, what do you think about this person? He would make the ultimate decision, but I would put my input in on it.
Basically, she was going to be the casting manager.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so it was just, you know, helping from the behind the scenes, you know, watching the sliders. Like, I would take care of the sliders and stuff there, make sure everyone's doing their job right and stuff like that, while he's trying to run everything else. And that's what I was gonna do last season, and then I ended up going to Hayride. And then, but if this season, if he does come back, then I will help him out as much as I can. But I think as a monster this year, I think I'm going to take the year off. I think I'm going to take the time off until the queen comes back. I don't feel comfortable going anywhere else. Like, it's just, nothing feels right.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I'm sort of cheating on the queen, you know, going other places, and it's
Cheater.
just,
Well,
right?
that's cool. You're helping out Anthony.
Yeah, you know, and
At
I mean,
least
helping him out, and
at least you'll be able to get to go to some events, and you know.
yeah,
that's kinda
like,
cool.
I know Sammy can't be here all the time, so
Yeah.
you know, it's just when he has to go out to like Corona or whatever, you know, I'm willing to go out there with him and, you know, help him film everything, and, you know, get pictures and stuff like that for him. And so it's, you know, it's super cool. You know, I'm grateful for Anthony, you know, to give me the opportunity to help him.
Yeah.
It's going to be
You
a
know,
different
'cause even if
experience, that's for sure. Because you actually
Yeah,
get to visit
'cause-
other haunts.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I haven't done that in years. Basically, I've only gone to knots, really, since
Yeah. That's all you
2016.
really had time for.
So it's going to be interesting to see it from a guest perspective, to go to all these other haunts and just sort of be like, film everything and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, I mean, that's my plans for this year. You know, I mean, I don't think I want to do anything until Queen comes back. And when Queen comes back, I am evolving Looney into an adult. So
Oh, God.
she's going to be, yeah, so she's going to be, you thought she was mouthy as a teen, just wait.
She's gonna have a job, pay her bills.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is this a year she's
So
gonna meet her?
excited.
Is she gonna meet her husband this year, or that next year?
Oh, boy.
That's
funny.
She's gonna start dating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Somebody that's chumpless.
Triplets.
chumpless.
Sorry. Well,
I mean, technically, Looney at 16 has already been dating, because anyone who asked, I was like, oh, my boyfriend's over at Knott's. Go find him.
yeah.
Every
Louis,
time she got in trouble, he's over there.
he's over
He's
there.
over there.
He's over there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So.
It's definitely
Yeah.
evolving her, and, you know, making her more not like a child, you know, so more, she's gonna be more sophisticated, you know, she's gonna walk around like she owns the shit, basically.
Give her a
You
little
know,
more
where she
attitude.
has, she's gonna throw
Yeah,
the
you could
attitude
use the hiatus
and,
to your advantage
Yeah.
yeah,
in some way.
you know, and that's why I was thinking of doing that, is, you know, with COVID and everything, you know, it's gonna be one of those things where now I'm coming back, and it's gonna be, you know, I'm not walking around slumped around like a kid anymore. Like, I'm gonna be, my head's up, you know, I think I'm better than everyone else sort of vibe, you know,
boy.
and just see how it goes, you know, and just talk shit.
Talk shit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Not.
You're fine. You're fine.
Uh-huh.
You're
So-
fine.
Good times.
But I think we're at a good stopping point now. I mean, we covered your history. We talked about what you're going to do in the future now. You know, taking the year off would probably be a good thing. Like I said, you know, it's going to be another culture shock for you, because you're not going to have to be at one place, the same place every night.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll be able to
Definitely.
experience some other things. That's the one thing for me that was a big sacrifice, is not being able to go to these other events. You know,
Yeah.
last year I was able to go to. I got a total of 6 nights off. Well, I was able to go to other events 6 different times.
I mean, that's how mine was too, but that's
Yeah.
only because I took the same nights off as you.
Yeah. So, it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely worked, I mean, it was one of those things, I love going to other haunts. I love seeing what other actors do, and how their scare tactics are. And especially being in the haunt industry for so long, well, not so long, but long enough to pick up on how they actually do scares and how they do everything. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like just to sit and watch like street monsters, like I'd rather sit there and watch street monsters all night rather than sitting there and going through mazes, because mazes, you know, they don't really do anything for me. But to sit there and watch how everyone else interacts with people or how their character is, it's mind blowing to see how many people have different talents doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. See everybody else's take on getting this,
It's good.
Definitely.
It's good inspiration too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Definitely.
So,
Yep.
But, well, I think this is a good stopping point. We got your whole history out. So, thanks again for coming on and spending a couple hours with us talking about your history and experiences and whatnot. And, what your future is what you look to do in the future. I think you're far from being done being the monster, but, a little bit of a break will probably do you some good. And then you come back, and with a new vision.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on.
Of course,
Of course.
we appreciate you having you on.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we do. But so, all right, ladies and gentlemen that are tuning in, we appreciate you guys viewing us. Please punch the like button and smash that subscribe, as I always say, and Jeremy thinks it's funny. Give us a click on our Instagrams, ask us questions there if you have any. Once again, thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Peace out.